Good evening. I'm Chris Pareja, and I'm your host this evening for The Right Side, the show where we look at today's issues from an admittedly conservative perspective. This evening, we'll be talking about property rights with my guest, Heather Goss, a property rights advocate from the East Bay. Heather,
Hi.
welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for coming.
Sure.
So talk to us a little bit about who you are and why you got so passionate about property rights and advocating for others.
Well, I've been living in the Bay Area, most of my life, and I'm a realtor, so, I care about private property rights a lot. And I was seeing and hearing people talking about, shrinking urban growth boundaries, rezoning, eminent domain, redevelopment, and, all of those things affect private property rights, and I really wanted to know more about it. And the more I dug in, the more I realized that, property rights in the Bay Area are at stake, and they're in danger.
Okay, you say they're in danger, but why? Is there some kind of evil plot to take away all of our property rights that's occurring currently?
Well, I don't know what the motivation is other than we've lost control at our local level. Our local jurisdictions are supposed to make decisions with the community about, how we grow, how we live, and how our community is supposed to look like. And those decisions are slowly being kind of sucked up, for a better word, into regional and state governments. And regional bodies are now making decisions about all 9 Bay Area counties and how people are going to live and where they're going to live. Our transportation authority, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, in conjunction with the Association of Bay Area Governments, is for the first time going to determine for the next 30 years how and where people are going to live for 9 million people without a vote of the public. And that to me is really alarming.
Well, how can they get away with doing something like that? It sounds like it's a very organized effort. Are there mechanisms in place for them to even be allowed to do this kind of a thing?
Well, there was a bill that was passed in 2008, and it was passed by Steinberg, and it's called the Sustainable Community Strategy Bill. And I know sustainable, the word sustainable is out there, and people think it means one thing, but really it's not about the environment. It's really about control and money. And there's a lot of money at stake in determining how and where people are going to live. And there's over $200 billion that's being given by the federal government as a grant to the Transportation Authority, the Regional Transportation Authority. And that bill gives them mandates that they make a plan and determine where people are going to live. So they are going to make that decision for all of us. And the plan is a cookie cutter solution. It calls for high density, I call it stack and pack housing for lack of a better word, but high density stack and pack housing next to mass transit. Right. And the idea is that, somehow that by taking people and putting them from vertical sprawl, which they call when people kind of, are able to use their property the way they want to, the suburbs are an example, and then shrinking them and making high density housing, that somehow that is better for the environment. But what people don't understand is that those developers that are going to create those high density housing units are all going to get CEQA waivers. So it's really...
Tell us what a CEQA waiver is.
Okay, yeah. A CEQA waiver is a California environmental quality, is part of the California Environmental Quality Act, which is basically measuring the GHG, greenhouse gas emissions, greenhouse gas, yeah. So the idea is, we need to get out of our cars, okay? Right. And so in order to get out of our cars and reduce the number of greenhouse gases, that the central planners, the regional planners have decided that we are all going to we should be living in these high density housing units next to mass transit. It all sounds like a good idea in theory, right. But when you start enforcing where people are going to live and how they're going to live, and you don't give them choices, and also the developers are getting waivers, then you realize it's really not about the environment at all. Because unless they force people out of their cars, there's no way to truly reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So, and that's coming too, and it's all part of this act. So it's a very scary bill.
It is a scary bill, and if they're actually giving waivers to people who play by their rules, that's a scarier thing as well, because obviously there is something that could be at risk by them putting these things into place. If they're giving waivers to excuse people from the rules that the rest of us have to abide by, we should be concerned. So tell us a little bit about some of the visioning sessions and things that are coming up here in the Bay Area. That's something that you're advocating heavily for citizens to get involved and to have their opinions heard. Tell us a little bit about the organization that's putting these visioning sessions together.
Well, MTC, the Regional Transportation Authority for the Bay Area, in association with ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments, is tasked with, through SB 375, they have to have public input workshops. You know, they have to inform people about this grand plan. I mean, this is going to transform our entire Bay Area. The law says that all they have to do is a minimum of one workshop per county. And that's what they're doing. They're doing the bare bones minimum to inform the public as to what's happening and what this big plan is. And frankly, they're doing a terrible job. I mean, you know, the average citizen has no idea that this regional body is visioning over their property what their future use of their property will be and how that's going to impact them and their neighborhood. And so I've been lecturing all over the Bay Area and all over the state about SB 375 and how that is also linked to AB 32, which is the cap and trade greenhouse gas bill as well. And, you know, just beating the drum, trying to let people know, because I really think that MTC and ABAG have failed to inform the public properly. This is going to completely change people's lives, and the public should know. We should have had exhaustive debates about this. It should have been on TV, radio, and instead, one workshop per county with they maxed it out at 100 people, and to me, that's just not good enough. And these visioning sessions are happening now. They're going on through the month of January.
And so what we've done is we've taken the liberty of actually downloading one of their demos from the website to show people what they can look forward to if they can't make the meetings because they didn't find out or they've already passed. And so we're going to go ahead and run that now, and then we'll look for some of your comments about how accurate the video is in comparison to the sessions themselves.
Okay.
Great.
Let's take a look.
The Bay Area is my home. I want to have a say in what happens here. How can people like you and me make our wishes known? Welcome to You Choose Bay Area, a way to express the choices you would make to shape the future of our region. In the next few months, regional planning agencies will be deciding how we move people around and where we build. These decisions will impact housing and transportation for the next 2 decades. After you read about some of the issues the Bay Area faces, click on the Priorities tab. Do you care most about conserving open space, or is your top concern less local traffic? Rank these issues that are important to you. Once you've set the priorities, click on the Choices tab. It's time to make 2 choices: where homes should be built and how neighborhoods will be designed for more people and more jobs. When you've selected your choices, click on Outcomes. On your right, you can see how your priorities make things better or worse than today. On your left, you can see how your choices would translate into benefit or harm to the environment or your pocketbook. After you see your outcome, you may want to go back and change your priorities and choices. Let us know how you would rate your future before you click on Get Involved. By inputting your zip code, we'll know what city matters to you. If you want to get more involved, please enter your email and register for a You Choose forum near you. Thanks for taking this first step. You can choose the future and create a better Bay Area.
And so looking at that, for people who are in the know and have done a little bit of research about the people sponsoring that, such as the last people I showed in the slides, the Greenbelt Alliance and others, these are people that have known agendas and are helping to put these things together, helping to fund, but also helping or receiving benefit from participation in the program. Is that right?
Well, they are strategic partners in this, and the developers are going to develop the properties. Greenbelt Alliance is going to is happy because a lot of property is going to be conserved. They call it conserving property as open space. Well, that's taking somebody's private property and making it unusable, and that's an administrative taking, and they're not going to be compensated for that. And when you rezone someone's property as open space, that takes it off of the tax roll as well. So the revenue for that city and county is down. But it's interesting when you look at these. I call it a video game online because when you see these things online and they say you choose, and then the next sentence it says in the next couple of months the regional planners are going to decide.
Right.
It tells you right there what's happening. You don't choose anything. This is all being chosen for us. And a lot of our local municipalities don't even know what the plan is. And the thing is that this regional plan, once it's adopted in 2013, will become a blueprint for all of our local jurisdictions. And there's $200 billion at stake in transportation funds. And if our local jurisdictions do not adopt this plan, they will not get the transportation funds. So there's huge dollars at risk.
Well, and not only that, they say it's you choose, but then they tell you at the end, they'll make sure that you've chosen the right answer. And you can go back and change your choices, which if I hear too much of that type of talk myself, we'd have to wrap the stage in plastic because my head may explode just right there because I don't like being told what to do or being corralled in. Now, we do have some footage also of you being passionate in person at one of these visioning sessions. We're going to go ahead and roll some footage of that and then get your feedback on what was happening and if the sessions were as leading as it seems that the website was.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and look at that next.
All right, great.
Right now, we're not dealing with how open space would be conserved. We're saying as a value, is that a high priority for us against other things? And if it comes up as a very high priority and a local jurisdiction sees that and says, how are we going to accomplish that?
Well, but
What are the
if
tools?
the local jurisdiction sees it's a high priority, but you're not telling us whose open space it is. If it's government property, yes, it does make a huge difference. Are you kidding me? If it's my property, you don't have the right.
I'm not saying it's not an important
If
issue.
it's government property, that's different. No, you cannot just say it's a value.
You
don't
can't
have the
value
right
somebody
to
else's
tell
property.
somebody else what they can do with their private property.
Okay.
And exactly, they're saying open space, all open space, that includes private property.
Okay.
And that you cannot ask people to vote on something that violates others' private property.
Okay. All
That
right.
is the question, ma'am.
Yeah.
Well, it is.
With all due respect, I think there's a.
You don't mind violating others'
All right.
private property. I do.
I would.
Space is not just open space. It's people's private property. You cannot have people do this.
All right. Thank you for that. I think that's a good perspective to share with us.
No, I'm not talking
All right.
to you, okay?
Can we go back and just see where
I'm
that?
not talking
Okay.
to you, ma'am.
So
I would ask for a question.
I think as Erica mentioned, it's perfectly fine to have differing perspectives, and we expect that. But let's just try and keep this civil, okay? Thank you. As you can see, a lot of varying opinions on this question of conserving open space. Okay, conserve water. How important is that to you? Is that a high priority?
So, in watching you in action, you were obviously heated. What gives you the idea that they're trying to take away people's private property to make this thing happen? What would you say if someone said, that sounds like a conspiracy theory?
Well, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's right in the bill. I mean, they require local jurisdictions to identify what they call PDAs, priority development areas, within their city, and they want to rezone that to mixed multi-use so that it is high density. And because the bill requires each jurisdiction to adopt this plan, and the plan calls for housing low income, very low income, and moderate income. So basically, you have to have so much housing, and in order to do that, you have to create this high density housing, which is what it calls for. And in order to do that, you're visioning over somebody's property. That property that they call a PDA area, priority development area, could be a single family residential neighborhood that's been there for 30 years, but it happens to be built next to a transit hub. And so that's the perfect place to do this because they want us out of our cars. Or it could be an industrial park or somebody's business, or, so rezoning is one of the things that they do to get people's property. So they rezone it as mixed multi-use. They rezone it to open space so you can't use it. They shrink the urban growth boundaries. It calls for policies that you draw an arbitrary line around the city, and anything outside of that urban growth boundary, anybody who owns property, you can't build on that.
Right.
So you can only build within these boundaries.
So the only way that it would seem logical that people would agree to this kind of a thing, would be if they were tricked into it, which in talking to you, the visioning sessions actually do contain some manipulative practices, the technical term being the Delphi technique.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about the choices, how they're presented, and kind of how the outcomes work out.
Well, these are all, these visioning meetings are all predetermined outcomes. They already know what they want to do. They want to create a stack and pack, high density housing model next to mass transit because that's where they want their transit authority. Right. It's like asking a railroad to build something else. They want to build railroads. Right. So they're going to come up with a plan to do that. But these visioning sessions, they have to give the illusion and the appearance that the public is actually giving input. So they make everything vague. They don't have any information about how much any of this is going to cost. They don't tell you what the impact on schools are. So let's say you, for instance, in Orinda, okay, in Orinda they want to build 300 to 500 stack and pack units on either side of the freeway, and it's a small bedroom community. It's going to change the voting demographic. It's going to impact the schools, fire safety. None of that is talked about. And the people that come to these meetings, they think, we want walkability and we want bicycles and all this stuff. Well, what they don't realize is this plan is going to be the only type of housing. There's not going to be any more choice. You won't have cars anymore. They want to legislate us out of our cars. It calls for policies that increase gas prices, bridge tolls, HOT lanes, high occupancy
vehicle lanes.
Yeah, right. And higher parking fees. It's punitive and it's behavior changing. It's socially engineering our lives. And what we want is local control. Each community in the Bay Area is so unique, and we want to preserve that uniqueness by having this regional plan by planners that have no idea what each community wants, and it's just setting a cookie cutter solution. Right. It's going to destroy the Bay Area.
Well, we've just got a few minutes left. I wanted to just ask you quickly about legislation that's passed, or actually a Supreme Court ruling, California Supreme Court ruling over the last few days, where redevelopment agencies are okay, the local redevelopment agencies have been okayed to go away. How is this whole plan for the Bay Area going to be affected by that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because, I've heard many people say, yay, redevelopment is gone because, it's been abused in so many ways, and I'm not saying redevelopment is good or bad, but at least it was local. Right. At least there was some accountability. At least it was the decisions about how a community would grow and the funding of that was done locally. So I'm here to let people know that redevelopment is not gone. Redevelopment is gone at the local level. It's now going to be handled at the state level, and the funding for redevelopment will be at the state level. So local jurisdictions just lost their planning capability for the future of their jurisdictions, and now they've lost the funding. So guess what? Whenever they want to change something now, and get transportation funds, they're going to have to buy into all of this. And the developers are going to buy into it because they're going to get part of the money and waivers and all this other stuff.
Are you saying pay for play really exists?
Well, you know what? The thing is that all of this is done and not one person got to vote on this. This is just unbelievable to me that 9 million, they're projecting 9 million people are going to be living in the Bay Area in the year 2040 or 2035. Right. And we are supposed to be now planning on how everybody's going to live and where they're going to live. Regional planners, not us.
Right.
Our vote doesn't count. And all I want is an honest dialogue about this. And so I'm out there telling people what is really going down, because they need to be talking to the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. They need to be contacting their assembly person, their senator in California, and demanding accountability. We should have a vote on this. The American public should have a vote, and the citizens of the Bay Area deserve it.
Well, in our final minute, can you just give us a little bit of information on where we can find out more about you or your initiatives or this Bay Area planning initiative as a whole?
Well, if you want to know where the workshops are, you can go to planbayarea.org/workshops, and I highly recommend that people get involved in that. Like I said, people need to be contacting their local assembly person. I mean, a lot of their local jurisdictions don't even know about this. Ask your city council person. They don't sit on these ABAG and MTC boards. They have representatives. And I know that a lot of them really don't know what's coming down. So if they don't know, we don't know. So you need to really get involved. But all the information is on Plan Bay Area. Go to the workshop, speak out, and just say no to SB 375.
Well, thanks a lot, Heather, for joining us this
Thanks a
evening.
lot.
You've educated us all.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate it. And now we'll be taking a quick break, and we'll be bringing our next guest, Howard Meyers, in to talk about our underwriter, the Conservative Forum. Welcome back to The Right Side. We'll now be speaking to our guest and underwriter, Howard Meyers of the Conservative Forum. Howard, tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the Conservative Forum and what the Conservative Forum is all about.
Thank you, Chris. I've been involved with the Conservative Forum for about 5 years. The Conservative Forum was founded about 8 years ago by Richard Gino and Jack Mallory. It's basically a forum that's set up to have the mission is to promote the values of the American liberty. And in order to do that, they're doing this in an educational way. The forum is actually an educational, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. And some people think that the nonpartisan and conservative can't go together. But in fact, we are nonpartisan, have been from the very beginning. One of the co-founders was and is a Democrat. And so there really isn't room for the partisanship, but we are very strong on conservative values. So we've been that way for the last 8 years, and we continue to grow. And so I think we're doing something right.
So grow. So Conservatives, Bay Area, I'm thinking you've gone from 5 people to 10. About how many people participate in the Conservative Forum?
Okay, we closed last year, 2011, with 587 paid members. We've outgrown 2 venues in the last several years. It just continues to grow. We're doing something right because we continue to grow. We have between 175 and 500 plus members at the various meetings. Excuse me, not members, but participants. We average about 250 participants per meeting. So like I say, we are becoming more and more popular. We had to find new venues because they're just not big enough. So now we're at the 432 Sterling Road in Mountain View. We have a very large facility, and we're making very good use of it.
And so that's one of the things that I appreciate about the Conservative Forum. You'd mentioned the nonpartisanship. There are Democrats, there are Republicans, there are conservatives, and I find that even just talking to people in the street, when you talk to them as humans, a lot of times the issues are the same concerns to them. 70 to 90% of the time, if we take the political labels off and just say, hey, is education important to you? Is having a safe neighborhood to live in important to you? Is making sure that the government is working for you instead of against you or to put you in prison? Most people agree that these are things that they would ascribe to being their own personal attributes as well. Isn't that right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I've often said that if we vote for people that think the same way we do, we would have much more conservative leaders.
Right. So tell me a little bit about the types of guests you have, and tell me a little bit about who's coming in the coming months.
Yeah, we've been honored to have some really terrific speakers over the last few years. People like Victor Davis Hanson. We've had Jesse Lee Peterson, Ward Connerly, Star Parker,
Andrew Breitbart.
John Lott, Andrew Breitbart recently, John Lott. There's some really great speakers. In the next few months, we've also got some real good speakers lined up. We have Gary, sorry Gary, I forget, from Hillsdale College is the next month, Wolfram, Dr. Gary Wolfram next month. And after that we have Meckler, one of the co-founders of the
Mark
Tea Party
Meckler.
Patriots. We have
Brian Sussman's coming.
Yeah, Brian Sussman is coming up. We have David Horowitz is coming up. We have a lot of good people coming up this year, and that's one of the reasons that we're so popular as a venue, is because people like to come there and listen to these type of people, and some real powerful speakers.
Okay, great. So tell me just a little bit in closing. We've got about a minute left. Tell us how to find out more information about the Conservative Forum.
Okay, the Conservative Forum, first of all, we meet every month, the first Tuesday of the month, except for July. In July, we meet the second Tuesday of the month in order to allow room for celebrating the 4th of July, very important holiday. We're at 432 Stearland Road. This is in Mountain View, the IFES Portuguese Hall. You can find us on the web at www.theconservativeforum.com. And we start doors open at 6:45, program starts at 7. And I think most people, like you say, without the labels, they come there and you mingle with the people there, listen to the speakers, they'll find they have an awful lot in common with them.
Well, we appreciate your sponsorship of the show, and we appreciate your insight, and we'll be looking to hear a lot more from you and the Conservative Forum in coming days. Thanks, Howard.
Thank you.
And so our last segment of the show is one where we like to have fun, and we have no problem poking holes in people regardless of their political affiliation. But the next segment is one that will be focused on fraud, waste, and abuse, which are definitely conservative types of topics. And we call this section Spend It Like You Stole It. Now, this time in particular, in the Spend It Like You Stole It story, we're going to be covering a politician who actually stole it like they stole it. And that would be Mary Hayashi, the assembly member from Hayward and Castro Valley, who just in the last 2 days her crime has been readjusted for her. She was accused of shoplifting over the last month and stole $2,500 worth of merchandise from Neiman Marcus. At the time, she'd claimed that a cell phone call had distracted her, and she walked out with a pair of leather pants and some other accessories in her bag. The defense yesterday actually used the plea that she has a benign brain tumor that caused some malfunctioning in her logic and her ability to make good decisions for herself. I'm sure it had nothing to do with the fact that her husband is also on the Alameda County judicial system, or that she's connected in a lot of other ways, but this temporary brain tumor got her off and had her reduced from a felony, which would have required her to renounce her place on the assembly, to a misdemeanor that allows her to stay in place. Personally, I think that she should have done a little different approach with her plea and said that as a member of the assembly, they steal from the citizens and the businesses of California for a living. She got confused and thought she was still at work. But on that note, we thank you this evening for your participation in The Right Side. I'm your host, Chris Pareja, and we hope to have you back visiting with us sometime soon.